Readings of Almighty God's words on the pursuit of the truth. How to pursue the truth. 13. The three categories of people based on their origins. The characteristics of people reincarnated from animals. The topic we fellowshipped on last time concerned how to discern and view people. This kind of topic can be said to be of interest to people, but because this topic is somewhat special and relates to the significant issue of people's prospects and destinies, it evokes some feelings in listeners that differ from those elicited by other aspects of the truth. For some, these feelings aren't particularly pleasant. After hearing this topic, some people might experience significant inner turmoil, and those who are numb might also experience some slight inner turmoil. Right? Regardless of what reactions people have, in any case, after these topics have been fellowshipped on, God's chosen people get some assistance in discerning people and in seeing through various matters, and are enabled to gain some insight and some discernment. Right? Last time, we fellowshipped about some manifestations and characteristics of people reincarnated from animals. So, what are the main characteristics of people of this sort?
Last time, we fellowshipped that people reincarnated from animals have 4 characteristics. First, they have distorted comprehension. Second, they are particularly numb. Third, they are particularly muddle-headed. And fourth, they are particularly foolish.
These 4 traits are the essential characteristics of people who are reincarnated from animals. So, have you all worked out what exactly the essential manifestations of people of this sort are? In other words, judging by their exterior, their speech and conduct, and the various manifestations of their humanity, what manifestations do they have that are related to these 4 characteristics? For example, what are the characteristics of how they approach the truth, and of the conscience and reason of their humanity? Of course, these traits are basically encompassed within the 4 characteristics of distorted comprehension, numbness, muddle-headedness, and foolishness, right? Now, based on some of the manifestations you can see and encounter in real life, explain these 4 characteristics in more detail. What other manifestations do you know of? For instance, people who are reincarnated from animals are very numb. If you point out their problem by merely providing a symbolic example, they still won't understand even if you tell them about this problem several times. So, you have to explicitly say, "I'm talking about you," for them to realize it's about them. Otherwise, they assume it's about someone else's problem, that it's unrelated to them, and think they're doing just fine. Isn't this numbness? You have to put it right under their nose for them to even react a little bit. So, can they comprehend the truth?
No.
Why can't they comprehend the truth?
Because they're sluggish to react and can't understand the meaning of God's words. When others point out their problems, they only grasp a doctrine or a regulation. They cannot comprehend it from a positive perspective, and thus it is impossible for them to have positive entry.
This is being devoid of comprehension ability. In terms of numbness, when someone points out a kind of state, they simply cannot realize what it has to do with them, whether they really have this kind of state or not. and whether or not they really have that kind of problem themselves. They cannot realize these things nor understand what the other person is saying. Even if you specify which thing they did, which words they said, or which manifestation they displayed on which day, and they know you're talking about them, what they grasp is just a matter, a statement, or a sentence, and they memorize it in a vague, superficial manner. After memorizing it, they just cling to a regulation. Don't say those words, and don't do those things. Do these things and act in that way. They can stick to this regulation for a lifetime, refusing to accept anyone's fellowship, and even wild horses couldn't pull them away. As the situation develops, due to changes in time, geographical environments, people, events, and things, and so on, you tell them that acting the way they did before no longer works, and that they need to adjust their approach or strategy, though the principle hasn't actually changed, but they can't comprehend it. They say, "I've been practicing this way for so many years, and it feels fine to me. I've been practicing based on what the leaders and workers fellowshipped about many years ago. Why should I change how I practice?" They even have a basis, but in reality, they've just been sticking to a regulation for years without even knowing or realizing it themselves. In terms of the characteristic of having distorted comprehension, most people who are reincarnated from animals exhibit manifestations of distorted comprehension. Their manner of thinking differs from that of normal people. Their ideas are very eccentric, strange, and sometimes even astonishingly unexpected. You simply can't imagine why they would think that way. And you never imagined that anyone in this world would consider issues in such an odd manner. Their ideas can leave you dumbfounded. This is because people with normal thinking generally consider issues according to a normal manner of thinking, whereas the manner of thinking of those who are reincarnated from animals is very peculiar. They frequently voice some odd and outlandish statements, and when someone with normal thinking hears them, that person will get startled. If you try to follow their manner of thinking to consider an issue, you'll find that it is very strange and comes to an impasse. Because they have this manner of thinking in real life, whether they're doing their duties, interacting with others, or facing certain circumstances, people, events, and things. Their ideas are always very weird, and they cannot get along with most people. They don't seem like creatures that live in the human world, but instead it seems like they are living in another world. You can never understand why they think the way they do, or why they come up with such thoughts. The way that they consider issues often exceeds the scope of the thinking of normal humanity and deviates from the proper track of normal thinking. The end result is that everyone finds their manner, stance, and principles for considering issues to be very strange. If such a person is present while everyone is considering or fellowshipping on an issue, and most of the people there lack discernment, lack their own opinions, or don't understand the truth principles, it will often be the case that their trains of thought are brought to a standstill, or that a normal discussion is disturbed and interrupted due to one of the distorted thoughts and views of that person. And what's the end result? After going back and forth, people find that the view that person put forward strays from the right path, that it's neither objective nor practical, and that it's moreover highly eccentric, and that their manner of considering issues is even extremely weird. When normal people chat and talk, the conversation grows livelier. Everyone becomes clearer on the issues in question, and the topic progresses further forward the more they chat. But if this person gets a word in, the conversation goes off topic. Other people become lost for words. They all feel that this person's words are too strange and cannot respond to them. The topic of discussion is thus interrupted. Though this type of person has unique thoughts and views, they consistently differ from the views put forward by those with normal thinking. Their thoughts and views are not those that normal humanity should possess, and they aren't within the scope of the thinking of normal humanity. So the things they say sound strange to other people or even unthinkable, and their solutions and paths aren't of any help to people, and furthermore have a nature of disruption, disturbance, undermining, and sabotage to them. It's all right if they stay silent, and everyone's trains of thought remain somewhat clear. But once they interrupt and state their opinion or offer a suggestion, everyone gets disturbed and disrupted when they hear it. Deviations arise in terms of the topic under discussion, and it's difficult for good results to be achieved. A person of truly good caliber, however, can pinpoint the crux of an issue, and they can grasp its vital point and share a correct path to resolve the problem. At the very least, they can provide some meaningful and valuable suggestions that build on other people's trains of thought. If they put forward a suggestion and everyone finds it to be fitting and is willing to accept it, then this means that the suggestion put forward by this person with good caliber has hit the vital point, because this person is able to see through things. If they don't speak, everyone might discuss for 3 days without reaching a conclusion. See, both of these types of people have unique views which are different than other people. But the views put forward by a person with good caliber can help others to see through to the essence of an issue and assist people in finding the correct direction and path of practice when they're lost. A person with distorted comprehension is different. Their views and distorted manner of thinking often have a dismantling and disturbing effect when people are discussing matters or having normal conversations. So, if a person with distorted comprehension who is reincarnated from an animal is involved in any church or any aspect of the work, they are likely to bring about disturbances and disruptions, and everyone will feel thoroughly fed up with them, thinking to themselves, "Just hurry up and send them away. They're too annoying." They spout irrelevant nonsense every day and still consider themselves to be so profound, when in reality, what they say is all fallacies. At first, some people may idolize them, but over time they will see through them and say, "This person doesn't have any profound insights. They're just pretending to be a wise person all day long in an affected manner." In fact, the views and ideas they put forward are utterly absurd and simply have nothing to do with the issues that ought to be handled. They will start to find them irritating and grow repulsed by them. So, if this type of person is responsible for some highly technical or professional work, or takes on some important work while doing their duty, they'll quickly provoke annoyance in others, because the views and demands they put forward always leave people incredulous and unsure of the appropriate way to act. If they're just an ordinary follower, merely obeying instructions and commands, then some deviations will frequently appear in the things they do. The leaders, workers, and those around them will have to constantly follow up on and supervise them. As soon as they take their eyes off of them, they will make mistakes, and others will invariably have to help them to correct and remedy their errors and to clean up their messes. In the end, when everyone sees that this type of person is beyond help, they will say, "They're always causing disturbances here, and no one is able to get any peace. Can't they be sent away? Let them go wherever they want." That's the reaction everyone will have. At first, they will be patient with them, thinking, "We're all brothers and sisters. None of us has great stature, and our understanding of the truth is shallow. Let's support and help each other." But in the course of long-term contact with them, they will see through them. It turns out that their issue is not one of having small stature. There's a problem with their caliber and comprehension. It's not that their comprehension is shallow or their thinking childish. Rather, their comprehension is distorted. Their way of viewing things and their thoughts and views fall outside the scope of normal thinking, and their opinions are often different from everyone else's. They refuse to accept what others say even when it's right, and they won't listen to any kind of explanation. Once they're set on their own idea, not even wild horses can pull them back from it. That is to say, they cannot differentiate good from bad. The things they deem good in their thoughts and views are, to people with the thinking of normal humanity, nothing but distorted things, things that can't be presented openly. Their views aren't just childish or base and worthless. They simply aren't thoughts or views that are produced by the thinking of normal humanity. So, this type of person can't get along with most people. This isn't due to a corrupt disposition or to barriers caused by differences in life habits or linguistic obstacles. And it's certainly not due to them committing some evil deeds or engaging in bizarre behaviors. It's primarily because of these characteristics that their humanity exhibits: distorted comprehension, numbness, muddle-headedness, and foolishness, which make it impossible for them to get along with most people. Of course, evil people and antichrists also can't get along with most people, but though they have this same trait, the essence or phenomenon of their inability to get along with others is different from that of people who are reincarnated from animals. Evil people and antichrists can't get along with others because they are in essence devils, whereas people who are reincarnated from animals completely lack the thinking and intelligence of normal humanity, as well as the conscience and reason of normal humanity. And so it is very difficult for normal people to chat with them. They can only talk about trivial domestic matters that don't involve the principles, leaving the scope of conversation very limited. People who are reincarnated from animals aren't, after all, those who are reincarnated from devils. They're distinct from people of that sort, and they also belong to a category of living beings. And so, as long as major principles aren't involved, they can still manage to associate, communicate, and interact with others in their daily life or while doing their duties. However, as soon as major truth principles or choices about which path to take are involved, this type of person becomes completely out of tune with most people and can't get along with them anymore. For example, you chat with this type of person about everyday life topics, what foods and dishes you like, how to cook them well, things about your hometown, and so on. The more you talk, the more you have to say, and the warmer the conversation becomes. Does this mean that the two of you are compatible? Does it mean that you belong to the same category? You can't tell those things just based on this kind of conversation. But when you talk about topics like why you believe in God and your views on belief in God, topics involving thoughts and views, truth principles, outlooks on life, values, the paths people walk, people's pursuits, and so on, your thoughts and views and your manners of thinking increasingly diverge and are no longer on the same track, and the conversation stalls. And why is that? Because their comprehension is distorted. When you first hear them speak, you think that they're quite shrewd, but over time you discover that they speak only words and doctrines and are quite haughty. Your feeling toward them changes. It's no longer so warm. Barriers arise, and the categories that each of you belong to get distinguished. See, when you discuss family life or your personal past, or chat about topics within the scope of everyday life like food, drink, leisure, interests, and hobbies, you can still converse. But as soon as the conversation touches on thoughts and views, truth principles, outlooks on life, values, life paths, or attitudes toward God and duty, it stalls. Your view of them changes, and their view of you changes too. You begin to feel some annoyance toward them in your heart, and barriers toward you arise in their heart. They dislike you, and you dislike them. Gradually, you drift apart and no longer have a common language. Different categories of people are thus distinguished. Therefore, to distinguish which category someone belongs to, one must look at what their comprehension ability is like, whether they possess the conscience and reason of a normal person, and whether they have normal thinking and intelligence. As for this type of person who is reincarnated from an animal, we won't fellowship specifically on them anymore. Next, we will continue by fellowshipping on the other two types of people. After we finish that, we will come back and compare these three types. Through this comparison, how to discern these three types of people will become increasingly clear and distinct.